You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis.
What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say Yeah, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Update with Matt Randazzo here on a Thursday in the Quad Cities, Thursday, June 11th. Thank you guys for joining us wherever you are, however you're watching the show. Hopefully everyone is staying safe around the Quad Cities, around the state of Iowa and Illinois. Some nasty weather this morning. If you can tell by the shadows and stuff behind me, it's almost nighttime, it seems like, outside right now. Some storms getting ready to roll through the Quad Cities. So here's hoping that we keep our electricity, our internet, and everything else that we need for a good show here on Off Day with Matt Randazzo. Thank you guys for watching. However you are watching, if you're watching us live on YouTube, we appreciate that. Thank you for that. If you have subscribed, awesome. Thank you. If you have not subscribed, please do so ASAP. It helps us out a ton. And then tell a friend or 2 or 10 about what we're doing each and every day right here in the Quad Cities Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. A fun show coming for you today on a Thursday. We're also live on X. X has been very, very good to us. Also streaming live on the WHO streaming app. The weather, I believe, through the central Iowa area. So hopefully you guys have settled down a little bit as it works its way through Cedar Rapids and now in the Quad Cities, some nasty stuff. But thank you for our viewers in Central Iowa. The first hour of the show is live on the WHO streaming app. We really appreciate being on that as well. And at 11 o'clock, if you want to keep watching, find us on YouTube. You can keep watching the show on YouTube as well, which is something I would encourage as well. Also, you can check out the show on all the podcast platforms as well. Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, put in Off the Air with Matt Randazzo and listen to the show as well. So we appreciate the hundreds of you that do that each and every day. We definitely appreciate that as well. Also, we're on Instagram, and it's not like it's new. Instagram is nothing new. I've been on Instagram, not very active on it, but over the weekend decided I need to kind of refocus a little bit on Instagram. So in a new account, at Matt Randazzo _OTA, put in at Matt Randazzo and you'll see it. And we do a lot of stuff on Instagram. So go check that out. Follow us, if you will, on Instagram as well. It's been a really fun week here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. On Monday, Jay Kidwell was on talking about 25 years of covering sports in the Quad Cities. We talked with the Bettendorf girls soccer team. We'll get to the soccer situation in a second. We also had Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears on the show on Monday. Tuesday, we had Tyler Tashman. We had the North Sky girls soccer team, John Marks as well. Wednesday, yesterday was Kyle Huseman. Did a great job on the show as always. A really fun interview with KJ Conklin. If you guys missed that interview yesterday, go check it out. KJ recently added to the Duke staff as an assistant coach. A Rock Falls native alum of the Rockets, has coached in the Quad City area. I think he spent a year with Ryan Vasquez at Sterling, but worked his way up, and it's an amazing journey and story of a coaching career. And now he's at his dream school at Duke. So a really fun interview. Go check that out as well. And then also your FCA story of the week yesterday. So a lot throughout the week, and we got a jam-packed show to get to today. On the show today, coming up in a matter of moments, we'll talk with the Athletics' Scott Dochterman. Obviously, a lot of talk this week about the Brendan Sorsby situation, him allowed to play now. We'll get his thoughts on that. Doc's done a great job covering it, writing about that, what it means here in Iowa with the gambling scandal that was a few years ago and the consequences then compared to what's going on now. So some great stuff from Doc. I'm also going to ask Doc his biggest strengths for Iowa football heading into the season and his biggest concerns for Iowa football, also Illinois football as well. And then we'll talk about Roger Craig Stadium with Doc. Doc was a stud at at Burlington High School, and he's played at Brady Street Stadium, now getting ready to be Roger Craig Stadium. So I'd love to get his feedback and his thoughts on that. So Scott Dochterman coming up in just a matter of moments. After that, some news broke right after the show got done yesterday. Alleman High School will not have a varsity football team this year. JV only. It's the third time in 4 years that's happened. They were JV only for 2 years. Back last year, played 6 games, and then had to forfeit the last 3, and it's JV only once again. Obviously, it affects Alleman. I'm an Alleman grad. My kids go to Alleman. One of mine does, 2 now, because another one's on his way as a freshman. So obviously, I know enough about what goes on at Alleman. Also, it affects the Western Big Six as well, and I totally get that. I completely understand the frustrations because it's not like a 1 or 2 year thing now. Now it's a 4 year thing for Moline. It's 5 because the year before they went JV only, they had to forfeit the Moline game. So this will be now 5 straight years that Alleman and Moline have not played football. So we're going to break that all down, talk about the subject, dissect it, look at it from all the different angles. With Greg Armstrong from View from the West coming up a little bit later on in hour number 1 into hour number 2 of the show. So if you're on here watching and waiting for that, it's coming right around the corner, and I think you'll enjoy it. I think a lot has to be talked about. I don't know if we have any answers. I know we don't have any answers, but just an open discussion that I think a lot of people are having right now on social media in the Western Big Six about what's going on. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Also, a few other news and notes at the end of the show as well. So a lot to get to here on a stormy Thursday in the Quad Cities. Some other news and notes. If you watched the NBA finals last night, wow, that was fun. That was amazing. The Knicks coming back from a 29-point deficit to win Game 4. They're now up 3-1. I put on social media last night, if you're not rooting for the Knicks right now, you're a liar. I had a few people say to me, like, I hate the Knicks, and it goes back to the Bulls days, and I understand that, and it kind of reminded me of me hating the Knicks back in the 90s and whatnot, but really a cool sports moment to watch. So and I got to watch it with a couple of my boys who were up here in the loft, in the office, if you will, the studio. So it was a lot of fun to watch history. Cubs walked off last night, so they go from the best record in the NL to now 500. So it's not good for Cubs baseball. We'll talk a little more about that later on in the show. And then state soccer. I want to bring that up because no state semifinals today. The weather going through, well, heck, the Quad Cities right now, but it's been through Des Moines. It's going to continue. There's more coming this afternoon. So they just moved everything to Friday. So locally here in the Quad Cities, North Scott will play at 12:30 on Friday against Norwalk in the state semifinals in 2A. And in 3A, Bettendorf will play Waukee Northwest at 3 p.m. tomorrow in the state semifinals. So probably a very, very good move to move that one day back and let everybody stay safe today. It's supposed to be a beautiful Friday. So that's one thing we all look forward to a lot when it comes to, after a rainy week here around the state of Iowa and Illinois and the Quad Cities, a nice Friday would be encouraged and a nice sight to see as well. Let's get rocking and rolling. We start with, in my opinion, one of the best in the business. So joining us now in the middle of all this weather and nastiness outside, a ray of sunshine. How about that for an introduction? Scott Dochterman from The Athletic joins us on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Thanks for doing this, buddy. I appreciate it as always.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on with you. It's good to see you again.
Well, hopefully Mother Nature allows us to get through this fun interview. Obviously, a lot going on, Doc, and there's so much I want to talk to you about, but I'll start with the big news in college football when it comes to Brendan Sorsby, the injunction allowing him to play. I guess, what was your first reaction when you heard that news earlier this week?
I was really surprised because I thought in this situation, I mean, there is, use your cliche, a third rail. I mean, it is the cardinal sin of athletics that you just do not bet on your team, positively or negatively. You just do not ever do it, and if you do it, then you're banned. I mean, it's been in place, since the Black Sox scandal from the 1919 World Series, and it's kind of been that precedent. We saw it with the all-time hits leader and Pete Rose. People of our generation remember that very well. And on down. And I thought in college football, it's a different era. It's a more forgiving era that people are more willing to say, well, okay, you made some mistakes. We're going to overlook it. But I think that's for the NFL to decide. I think in college football, that this is a situation where most people agree, almost universally, except for one school and particularly one judge from that one school. they all tend to agree that that it shouldn't happen in college football. And yet, through an injunction, through an activist judge, he was able to get the ability to play a waiver, and he's going to miss 2 games, against the 2 weakest teams on their schedule, and therefore, I think at this point it still remains to be seen if he actually takes snaps, because there is such a uproar in the Big 12. Of course, nationally there is, and among other conferences, but particularly even in the Big 12, it's 15-1 on whether you should play. And so this would, this could harm the Big 12 brand, and they understand it. And I think, whether they apply that much pressure to Texas Tech to say, don't do this, this is, if this happened to Baylor, or if this happened to Texas, where would you guys stand? And, it seems very selfish to me. And you throw the entire system into jeopardy, which there are ways to do that are healthy. And I don't think this is the one that it makes it healthy.
Yeah, Doc, you look at it, and you talked about the outrage, or the voice of disapproval around the nation. It comes really loud here in the state of Iowa, as you know. I mean, when you go through what Noah Shannon, we talked about Keaton Anthony yesterday, the baseball wise, and him losing a really special senior season, the Iowa State players, revisit that, because I think here it hits home a little harder, because you're the Noah Shannon was it a $20 bet, $10 bet on Iowa women's basketball, which I think I probably did at that time as well, and self-reported it, lost a senior season. It hits home here in Iowa, doesn't it?
No question. And this is what makes it more difficult for Iowa and Iowa State and in this region, and that 41 different players were lost eligibility because of this. Either it's a season, several games, or an entire career. And and of course the circumstances are completely different. This was an overreach, I think, by the Division of Criminal Investigation in Iowa to slap a warrantless geofence around the athletic facilities at Iowa and Iowa State University, which is government intrusion at the nth degree. And they got information on hundreds of students. And then, of course, the athletes themselves were caught, and some people are saying, "Well, they broke the rules." Well, yeah, but there's differences between, say, I use this analogy where if you're smoking weed in your own house and you're in the state of Iowa and you're not allowed to do that, most people would say, well, that's your business. But if the cops set up a camera outside your window and viewed you do it and arrest you, then that's government intrusion. And I think that's kind of what the case was here. Sure. And then, the one thing I will say, though, is a lot of people are like, they need to sue the NCAA for this. And this is not an NCAA situation. The NCAA banned him for life. The NCAA made him ineligible. Texas Tech went to a Texas judge, and the Texas judge was the one who's allowing him to play. In the state of Iowa, they went after the athletes. There wasn't a judge that was going to let them happen. And then eventually, though, once the overreach was discovered, I guess, then you started to see charges being dropped. But at the same time, the rules were so difficult back then that, and then the seasons came up so tight that it really hurt. Noah Shannon couldn't get back on the field, and Keaton Anthony. I think that's probably the lost tragedy. of the whole thing was that might have been the best year that Rick Heller had, and the best opportunity to reach the super regionals, maybe even the College World Series, and Keaton Anthony's and the one or two best players that he probably ever had at Iowa, along with Jake Adams, and it's like you lost that unbelievable opportunity because of what happened here, and so that's a real tragedy in the sports sense. And so I think what we're seeing here is again, it's an activist judge, and it works both ways politically. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. Hey, Doc, you look at it and there's outrage. I think I'm frustrated with Sorsby. I'm frustrated with Texas Tech. Who's to blame more? Is it the adult in the room, aka or the quote unquote adult, which is Texas Tech, who's figuring out ways to make this work? Is it the kid? Who's more to blame about there's plenty of blame to go around. Who's more to blame about a weird, probably bad situation?
Brendan Sorsby is the individual who you can blame on his own actions caused this situation, no question about it. And, and whether or not he has an addiction, that I'm not here to judge. That's what he claims, and he's treated for it. But as we know with addiction, it's if you say, oh, I went to, addiction camp and got, and I'm free now of the addiction, that's just not realistic. I mean, that's just laughable if you try to claim that. I don't blame him as much. He's doing what he's trying to do to get in order to play. And the athletes at Iowa and Iowa State tried the same thing. But in this situation, you got to blame the adult in the room, which is Texas Tech. And they spent the money on him, and so they want that investment. But to push this far, to willing to break the entire system into 1,000 pieces, and then you also look at the flip side of this, and it's basically should just rename their whole institution Cody Campbell University, because he's the one pushing for all the changes at the congressional level. That when you got this much investment into multiple different things, and you're pushing and pushing and pushing, it just seems to me that they don't have the best interest of the sport or the industry at heart. I mean, they're doing it selfishly. And so that's probably where I would lie, that once he was deemed ineligible, that I think that they needed to back off and say, we've got to do what's best for the sport. And because if this is a situation, there's going to be rogue coaches. I mean, there are. And if they're not going to be held in check because they've emasculated the NCAA to the point where it can't enforce any rules, especially the cardinal sin, then I feel like, you're not only going to start over, but you may not ever regain what you once had.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and a really slippery slope when it comes to these things. A few more on this subject. I had one of my sons ask me, Doc, they said, is this Sorsby guy that good? And so I guess, how obviously if you've invested in a quarterback and they have high hopes and they have playoff aspirations and those type of things, how is he that good in order to, like you just said, just basically strip down the institution of college football and go against a cardinal sin? And is he that good of a football player?
He's good. He might be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Whether he's top 10 good or top 20 good, I really don't know. I mean, he flashed a lot last year, and he also had some performances late, I thought, that were suspect. He didn't play that well against Nebraska, frankly, in the opener at Arrowhead. And so, he's a pro prospect. He's tall. He's got a good, strong arm. He's got good legs. He's what, you would want in a quarterback, but is he Arch Manning? Is he a guy that's, Caleb Williams or anybody? No, I wouldn't put him in that category. I think he's a very good quarterback. And I do think if this was 5 years ago before NIL came into a place and he just transferred and hit the portal, that I don't think this would be an issue. I think the fact is that they paid him a lot of money and now he's ineligible. And it's like, well, we got to make sure he's eligible because we got to get our investment here. And that's kind of the danger of the NIL game, which Iowa knows all too well from getting a really good offensive tackle and then seeing him leave before spring practice starts.
Which is a whole different issue because you're giving them, you got to think that eventually you'd have to be able to, if you're going to give a kid a lot of money, you should probably have to play the season before he gets the money or at least deliver in his side in order to get that type of money. Last one on this. Does Brendan Sorsby play football this year? How does this end? If you were a betting man, no pun intended, where would you does Brendan Sorsby play 2 games? Does he play 12 games or whatever? Obviously not the first 2, but how does this thing end? Where does it go from here?
I would say today, June 11th, it's 50-50 because he is at this very moment eligible to play based off of Texas judge's 4-page ruling, which read like Cliff Notes. I mean, there was no depth or anything to it, but there is such an crazy amount of pressure right now. And, leagues meeting about whether or not to completely ban Texas Tech in every sport. And I've checked with the Big Ten, and in some sports they don't have them on there, and they're not going to have Texas Tech on a non-conference schedule. And so if Texas Tech looks at the big picture, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Because, even last year they had a great year. They had one of the best years. They had the best year in school history, and they got shut out in the playoff. Is it worth it? And is it worth it to completely, just sever the ties with the Big 12 in the point where they're never going to be the same as what they once were, and just to win another Big 12 title, maybe get to the playoff, maybe win a game in the playoff, and that's it, because they're not winning the national title. I think that's probably something they have to ask themselves. And so I wonder what the final, adjudication is going to be on this. If I were a betting man, and I don't want to, I would just say I think the best option, let's put it that way, is I think he should enter the supplemental draft for the NFL and go to a camp. Don't be so selfish to just take this whole thing down with you.
Yeah.
And if that means, you're going to take a pay cut, obviously, in the NFL than you are in college, kind of like Alex Karras in the 50s. But when he went to the Lions, he took a pay cut from the Hawkeyes.
Yes.
So, no, that's what I would do if I were him. But, when you have strong-willed people who, try to own the game, and Cody Campbell, you never know what's going to happen.
I have a lot of kids, and another kid said to me at a different time, like, hey, what would Kirk Ferentz do, like, in this situation? I said, you should live your life, WWKD. What would Kirk do? Because this wouldn't even have gotten past this point to be talked about. I want to play a little game with you. Biggest concern, biggest strength, biggest weakness or concern when it comes to our two local teams here, when it comes to Iowa and Illinois. We'll start with the Hawkeyes. They get ready. I mean, it's right around the corner, Doc. I mean, it's really close to college football season being here and actually talking about football instead of gambling and those type of things. Biggest strength as Iowa gets ready for the 2026 season would be what?
Yeah, I think I would – it's a good question, because it's like, how narrow do you want to take these groups? I mean, we could get one player at one position and say tight end is really set. And DJ Vanami is going to be one of the best tight ends in the country. He's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten for sure. And is that the strength of this team? It seems to be, quite a strength right now. But, I'd say unit wise, beyond just one player, I probably, I would go offensive line. And even though they lost 3 guys to the draft, and
that's wild.
I know, and 5 the last 2 years. But you look at who they return, and dare I say, I mean, the upside that Trevor Lauk and Cade Pieper have is higher than what they lost. I mean, these are guys, when I was at the combine, they were like, they could be top 50 draft picks now as redshirt sophomores going into their junior year. I mean, PFF had Trevor Lauk graded as one of the highest players last year, and he's a left tackle, and now you have a guard moving to center, and then you look at, okay, who steps in at those positions, and Jack Dotzler was a guy that they really liked a lot last year. He just, they went with Lauk. I mean, I remember this time last year I would have said Bryce George was going to be your left tackle, Division II All-American, and it turned out Lauk was the best, and he played like it, and you looked at him and you're like, he fits the part. So I guess unit-wise, and that may sound strange, because the otherwise I would say running back is pretty healthy right now too. They got a lot of depth there. They got some talent. Do they have a first-team All-Big Ten guy? I don't think so, but I think they're the offensive line certainly does. They have 2 All-Americans, so I would probably lean towards that. Quarterback is kind of its own category. If you're untested, it's automatically the most biggest concern. So I'll avoid that right now. We got a long summer to talk about stuff like that. I'm going to go defensive line.
Yeah.
Because they lost 6 of their rotation. And that is huge for Iowa, because how Iowa goes in recent years, even when they've had horrific quarterback play, and they have, it's been, not last year was good, but, Deacon Hill and Cade McNamara were as bad as it gets. one as a player and one as a person. But, I think when you start to go with, defensive line, though, that's where Iowa competes. If they have a good defensive line, it sets the tone on their defense. They're able to set the secondary the way they want to. If they have a good defensive line, then they have 7 different kinds of coverages, zones that they can flood. That really helps them keep the ball in front of them, not give up big plays. Otherwise, if their defensive line isn't very good, A, you can't stop the run, and that's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And B, if you can't get to the quarterback, then you've got to bring blitzes, which opens up more areas on the field and that sort of thing. So I think they've got some talent there. I think it's probably going to take time to mature. The problem is for Iowa is their first 3 Big Ten games, going to Michigan, Ohio State at home, then going to Washington. That is a really difficult grind. You would have liked to have had a minimum one of those games in November.
Yeah.
Because then you could figure, because they're going to probably throw 10, 11, maybe even 12 defensive linemen out there all the time, rotating them just to try to see who's going to kind of rise to the top and keep guys fresh. Because if they aren't experienced in a way where you feel like, they can go 45 snaps a game or more, then you figure, well, at least what we'll do is we'll just have fresh guys, so, and I think that's probably where they are, but that's probably where I would start with Iowa. Then I think that if they can get a defensive line that shows a lot of fight early and gets better as the course of the season, then my concerns will be alleviated. But playing those teams, I think this team could compete with Michigan and Washington even on the road. I think they're in that ballpark. Ohio State at home, man, that's Jeremiah Smith and Brandon Ennis and Julian Sayin, and their offensive line almost entirely returns. It had some weaknesses last year. I'm sure it'll be alleviated. That scares me for Iowa. I just don't. And anytime you play Ohio State, it's not a prescription for success. But at that point in the season, that could be a little bit daunting, I think.
Doc, I can't remember, and I don't want to get too far into the quarterback thing. I want to talk a little Illinois, but are you a Hecklinski? Are you a Hank Brown? Do you have a thought, or I don't want to say a favorite because you're not the coach, but is there one you lean more towards than the other when it comes to who's the starting quarterback come August, whatever it is, September, whatever it is?
I right now, from what I've heard, and that's just hearing things, I would probably lean towards Hecklinski at this point. I think he's a guy who makes plays, and I think on offense you're going to need that. And I'm not going to be overly critical of Hank Brown and his performance against Indiana. That was I'm sure he doesn't really admit it because I asked him about it. As far as did that one pass against Indiana, which you threw at the feet of Kamari Bolton, do you think about that at night? He's like, no, I let it go. But that was, you get that play, they win that game. It's just that close and that simple. And so you take everything into consideration. And I know Hecklinski is a playmaker, and sometimes you need that. That's my our alarms are going off.
The weather alert.
Yeah. So sorry about this.
No, you're fine.
I can't help this.
No, you're good. You're good. It's all coming to the Quad Cities soon, so we're used to it. We're ready for it.
You're gonna get mine.
If this is even on air, I'll be thrilled. So that's the plus. Doc, before I let you go, and I want you to stay safe, but Roger Craig Stadium is the thing. And you played at Brady Street Stadium. You know a lot about the MAC. You're a legendary Greyhound, is what I like to call you. You can see it over your shoulder, right? That's the jersey. Yes. I said Roger Craig Stadium before we started, and you're like, yes. Like it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? It's about time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no question. And and I have this little sliver of Burlington history that I can always go to, which is actually sad at this stage because this will be year 35 since I last played. But I wore that jersey in Burlington's only playoff victory
Oh, wow.
in school history.
Wow.
And I was the one who completed the last pass of the game. So,
Yes.
hey, I'm a trivia question.
I love it.
Who threw the last completion in a Burlington playoff win? And it was a sorry ass sports writer.
No,
But,
that's a great story, Doc. Now every time I see that I should genuflect or something like that. But those are great days, and I know that Roger Craig and he was a legend around this area. Boy, that's a great thing to do for the stadium.
Absolutely. No question. I mean, he deserves it. If there was one other person that I would ever put that thought that their name should be on that stadium is Daryl Bates. I think he, the sports writer from the Quad City Times for all those years. I mean, Daryl was the kind of guy, and he covered Roger Craig. He was just like, if you're mad at Daryl, to me, then it's your fault, not his. He was a great guy, and so he deserved something like that, if not Roger Craig. But Roger Craig is, we can say, is the best player, ever out of that area. And Johnny Lujak is good too. But to go to the Hall of Fame, play at Nebraska, play the way he did, to win Super Bowls for the 49ers, and play at Davenport Central. And his older brother, Curtis, was just about as good too.
Yeah.
And that's when Central really had it rolling, man. I mean, in the old Mississippi 8 days before PV hopped aboard and Davenport North became a school. So I know a little bit of my MAC history on this. And, and he was so awesome. And then, and then later on, there were some great players. I mean, Tavian Banks, I did play against him 3 times. And so I'll never forget this, that when he was a sophomore, starting his first game, they came to Burlington my junior year, and our coaches were pretty emphatic about how good he was. He goes, our defensive coordinator at the time, he just said, look, this is the best running back in the Quad Cities since Roger Craig. We have to be careful here, with him. And he ended up breaking his leg in the opener, which really kind of sucked, for Tavian. But next year he got us back. But so Roger Craig, there's really no better athlete there. And I think for the city, for Davenport, for Brady Street Stadium, luckily, as I kind of joked on Twitter, that I still have a scar on my right knee, from Brady Street before it was turf. And my first job, a full-time job, was at the Muscatine Journal in 1997. And the Muscatine Muskies were the doormats of the MAC forever.
Yeah.
They went 34 straight years without a winning season.
Oh, wow.
And then they win the MAC. It's unbelievable that year, my first year showing up there. And of course, at that time, Burlington and Muscatine were rivals, and so that was kind of people were giving me a hard time, like, hey, I don't play anymore.
Yeah.
But one thing I remember, and this was right before they decided to make it turf, was Muscatine played Assumption there at Brady Street Stadium. And it was the 77th game played at Brady Street Stadium, and it had rained, kind of like the last few days, rained so hard it turned it into like a cornfield after harvest. And it was just like so chewed up that's when they said, what, we got to do this. Because, I think at that time, maybe Ambrose was playing there too, along with Assumption and the 3 public schools, junior highs, all the freshman teams, of course, the sophomores and varsities. So it was the 77th game on that field that night, and Muscatine lost. And so then they decided to go with turf after that, which made sense. But, anyway, I digress. I think I love the fact that Roger Craig is getting this honor. He absolutely deserves it.
Doc, 2 things. Daryl Bates, when I started getting into this field of media, he was the one person that made me feel like I belong. And I mean, not saying everybody's mean, but like he was so, he would, hey, you got everything? You good? Like he wanted to make, and different fields. I mean, he's a sports writer. I'm carrying on a camera and stuff. There's not a better genuine person than Daryl Bates was. Also, because the alarms got me a little carried away. Illinois real fast. I left Illinois out. Strength, weakness for Illinois before I let you get out of here and take shelter.
I'd be remiss if I don't mention more about Daryl, because I almost got like weepy when you brought it up. Because when I worked part-time at the Burlington Hawkeye for about 5 years where I grew up. And he's the one who told me about the job in Muscatine. And he didn't have to, because his brother, Roger, who was also there for a long, long time, had been kind of pushed out before that. But Daryl still thought enough of me that he suggested I take that job. When I was at Western Illinois, he would call me and ask me, hey, I remember Vince Jackson, who's another great, phenomenal, maybe the best pure athlete in the Quad Cities all those years, and he's like, hey, can you do a story on this? So I had bylines in the Quad City Times, which, when you're 21, 22 years old, that's just money. I mean, you just feel, 1,000, you feel 1,000 feet tall. And I learned so much from him. I mean, we all have our great writers and people we follow, and we talk about these people on a national level. And man, you're going to turn me into, you're like Roy Forrest, you're going to make me cry. I'm not kidding you that the guys that I respected the most are the high school guys, because they have to start from scratch. When we go to college games, we have a seating area. It's unobstructed, except at Indiana basketball once in a while. And it's you have notes. You have notes on your computer, stats. They take you to these media areas to interview athletes, transcripts, all the stats you want. It's pretty easy. High school is not that way. You have to keep your own stats. You have to build relationships with coaches and athletes. You have to maintain those relationships. It's very emotional. It's personal when it's high school athletes. And watching Daryl conduct himself when I was a young and impressionable young writer, I learned so much. And I watched him. He used to have these pens, and they were like 4 colored pens. And he'd use a different colored pen for every quarter of a basketball game or football game. And it was just like, this is how he kept his stats, and they were impeccable. And, I ride with him to like all state meetings once in a while, especially when I was in Muscatine. We'd meet like on I-80 over by West Liberty, and we'd ride the rest of the way together and stuff. And it's just, again, with somebody like Daryl, and you watch him, he's not covering the Hawkeyes. He's not even Craig DeVries back then covering the Bears. He's covering high schools, and he loves it. Yep. And they love him and respect him because of how he did it. And he made everybody feel welcome, as you said, Matt. People back then who were on the different television stations or just starting out at the Quad City Times or working throughout the state, he never big timed you.
Yes.
And he was always there for you. And so, it's hard to put into words what he meant to me, more so than just about any other writer that I've ever been around or have worked with. It's just, I feel like I owe him that.
When you're in over your head, like I already was, and you feel like probably shouldn't be doing this because I can't cut it, and you have Daryl Bates tell you, hey, like I saw that thing you did the other night, that was great, or hey, you did a great job, like, or is everything good? Like I would get back in my car and go like, well, maybe I can do this because Daryl Bates just said like, hey, and so that means more than like I think a lot of people realize and know. Mm-hmm. So the weird transition back to Illinois football.
Illinois football.
That's the thing. But give me a strength and weakness, and then I'll let you take cover, my friend.
Yeah, I think in some ways, I with Illinois, they lost so much last year. Last year was like the year where they had everything coming back, and so I'm kind of like, how do they get back to that? Are they going to fall back in the same old Illinois, or are they going to really kind of take that step forward? And for me, I like their secondary. I think getting Xavier Scott back is really going to be a big lift for them. He was such an incredible leader last year before he got hurt, and I think they missed that. I'm not going to pretend to say that they would have had a better result against Indiana, but at one point it was 7-7.
Yeah.
And so, maybe things slow down a little bit if he's around. that was such a tough game. I was there for it.
Oh yeah.
Because I was gonna my charge was I was gonna write about the winner, not only in that game, but then I was gonna either go to Champaign or stay in Bloomington for a couple of days and write a big feature about the winner, and then poor Illinois that kind of got pushed out.
Yeah.
So I like the secondary. I think that they've got some players there.
Matthew Bailey, a little Quad City kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Matthew Bailey for sure. And then I would say, offensive line is such an interesting focus to me with Illinois, because last year, again, it felt like they were ready to, that was going to be their biggest strength. And now, is it, what's going to happen now? Now they've got a pretty good transfer left tackle, Christian Martin. I like him. Jake Renfro is on his third team, but he's a very talented player. And so I like what he does at center for them. And, probably the most interesting move to me, maybe across the board, and probably wide receiver is probably their deepest position right now, a little bit with Hudson Clement and Colin Dixon back. And Alex Perry from Florida International is probably a guy that I think that everybody seems to like. But, running back, moving Caden Fegan to tight end, that's also one that I thought, I didn't quite see that coming. I looked at him as like Nick Bell from Iowa, 35 years ago.
Yes.
But Aiden Lowry is, I remember him picking Illinois over Iowa and doing it like on a local TV station in the Champaign-Urbana area or Decatur area. And I thought that was something, but it happened to replace, they got a new defense, and Bobby Houck is a defensive coordinator, pretty much all new starters up, in the two deep up front. I definitely think that their secondary is their strength. I think Juice Clark's decent, and Matthew Bailey, as you said, at safety is pretty good. And then Xavier Scott, I think, could still be one of the best, if not the best, defensive back in the Big Ten.
Absolutely. Doc, behave yourself, be safe all day today. And again, you are my new trivia question. The last player to throw a touchdown pass in a
touchdown. No, I wish it was a touchdown. No.
It's just a pass.
A completed pass.
Oh, a completed pass. And hey, it still works for a Burlington playoff victory. Scott Dochterman, forget about the athletic.
Yeah.
You should change your bio on your X to that. So, Doc, I always appreciate the time. I appreciate you coming on the show when you do. I know you're busy. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Get ready because college football season is here. You know that. So, always appreciate you, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. That is Scott Dochterman from the Athletic joining us here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo on a stormy morning here in the Quad Cities and the state of Iowa. But we got more to talk about, obviously. College football on everybody's minds. Also, in here in the Quad Cities, high school football on a lot of people's minds as well. Yesterday came news that Alleman will not have a varsity football team once again this season. We'll break that down, kind of talk about what it means, not just for Alleman, but for the rest of the Western Big Six with Greg Armstrong from View from the West. And that's next right here on OTA. We'll be right back. All right, be honest. Are you craving Hungry Hobo again? You know, that fresh sliced meat piled high on those amazing sandwiches, hot off the grill chicken and steak, with all those delicious toppings, the biggest and best selection of baked potatoes, or simply some waffle fries dipped in cheese. Well, now that Quad City favorite is even easier to get. Download the Hungry Hobo app today. Order ahead, skip the line, and earn rewards all at the same time. There's Double Points Monday and exclusive specials as well. With 12 locations in the Quad City area, it's Hungry Hobo. Now even easier to find, but still hard to resist.
Rafferty Funeral Home, dedicated to serving families in the Quad Cities since 2007.
Hi, welcome. Here, come on in.
An experienced staff plans each service to reflect the unique life and legacy of your loved one. Rafferty Funeral Home is proud to serve our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, helping you to celebrate your traditions and lasting memories no matter your faith, culture, or budget. Rafferty Funeral Home in Moline. Call today to discuss prearrangements.
When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off There with Matt Randazzo here on a Thursday in the Quad Cities. Of course, high school football season is right around the corner. In fact, last week we had the guys from View from the West, Mitch and Greg here, talking about high school football, and they're up and rocking and rolling as usual, and it will be here before we know it. But we don't usually talk a ton of high school football in the middle of June unless something has happened. And news came yesterday, right as we were getting done with the show here on Off the Air, that the Alleman football program will sit it out varsity-wise coming up this fall. They'll do JV only. It'll be the third time in 4 years that Alleman won't have a varsity football team. They were out for 2, JV only, and then they came back last year with varsity, played 6 games, had to forfeit the final 3, and now won't have a varsity team this season. They'll have a JV team, which of course affects them and their students and their school, also affects the Western Big Six, and a lot of people scrambling for games as we get ready for the season to start here real soon. So talking about that and much more, our good friend Greg Armstrong joins us from View from the West. Hey, buddy. Thanks for doing this. You're always on standby when I need you for breaking news. I appreciate that.
I'm ready at any minute, any second. I'm ready. I wish we were talking about like actual football previews, and this is kind of the opposite, but it is news. So I guess, here we are. Yeah,
and we'll talk a lot about it. We'll preference this. We don't have answers for everything. I think I want to clear up a few misconceptions, and I understand every side of it. I really do. I get everybody's thought process, whether you're a team in the Western Big Six frustrated because Alleman's not there, or if you're a Pioneer like myself. Full disclosure, I'm an Alleman Pioneer. I don't think people realize that with the helmet on the desk, but so I get both sides of it. I guess when the news comes yesterday, Greg, what was your first thought, your first reaction?
If I'm being totally honest, obviously there's disappointment, but then I almost I'm annoyed that man, we got to talk about this again, right? Here we go again. And that's I'm not pointing fingers at anybody in this scenario. I wish this wasn't a conversation we were having. I know Alleman wishes it wasn't a conversation. I know the west of the Western Big Six wishes the same thing. So that's my ultimately, I'm just kind of frustrated that we have to have this conversation again, because it's a disturbing trend that, here we are having this conversation about Alleman not being able to field a varsity team.
Absolutely. I want to go through some timeline, and these are factual timelines. I know when you go to social media, people jump in with opinions, and everyone has a right to their own opinion. But facts have to be sprinkled in. So, and I'm not defending Alleman first and foremost, but this is kind of where it's at. We mentioned at the top, Alleman didn't have varsity football for 2 years. They came back last year. They forfeited the final 3 games of the season. Did play JV games on those, but did leave some teams in the Western Big Six scrambling and forfeiting and those type of things. And so after the season, in January, there was a meeting with Western Big Six, and Alleman officially asked to get out of the conference for football only. If you look at Alleman High School right now, the numbers are up enrollment-wise, which they are. The other sports are doing really good. There's a lot of really good sports and programs going on at the school. So it's not just an Alleman problem. It's more of a Alleman football numbers problem. So they knew it. They asked to get out just for the football, and the Western Big Six said no, which is their right. They have every right to do that. At that point, Alleman said, okay, their hope is to play varsity football this year, but they couldn't guarantee that something like last season or the following seasons might happen. I think as they went through the spring and saw things develop, they realized they aren't going to have enough players to play varsity football in the Western Big Six. I can talk a few numbers. As of right now, they think they have 20 kids from sophomore to senior that are ready to play high school football, that are going to play high school football, not ready, but ready or not, that are going to play high school football. That's an extremely low number. So they're frustrated as well. They're disappointed. They want to play, but that's where this comes from. I don't think they're sitting back waiting, trying to screw with anybody, mess everybody up or anything like that. But those are kind of where they're at. So I think with that being said, Greg, I know that's the Alleman, I won't say side of it because those are facts, but I totally understand the other side of it with this isn't just, a year or two. Like we're working on 4 years now where Alleman hasn't played varsity football to a full season. And I think that's the frustration on the other side. And I get that as well.
Yeah, I think you go back a year ago and you knew that Alleman, or you had been told Alleman was going to play. And so you would have hoped that things had turned the corner and that maybe we were going to see, not great, maybe not great results, but at least they were on the field. They did get a win in week 1, I believe, week 1 or week 2.
Yeah.
They competed early in the season. In the Western Big Six, there wasn't a lot of close competition, but they were on the field. And I think even in the middle of this season, you thought okay, they're playing football week in and week out. And then as we got into, week 5, 6, and 7, as we got into the end of the year, and they weren't playing any, they weren't able to field a varsity team or weren't able to compete at the varsity level. Even back then we were kind of questioning, oh boy, where do we go from here? And I'm not directly, I'm not as connected. I'm not hearing things day in and day out, so I didn't really know where we were at. There was in the back of my mind, some reservation about where they're going to get back. And I know that coaches had talked about already having conversations about filling Alleman's place, even though they thought Alleman might be back in the mix. Yeah. They were still just as a contingency plan going to fill that part of their schedule. And now, as it turns out, okay, you're going to have to fill that part of your schedule. I think the real disappointing thing is, again, you're canceling games for multiple teams, multiple student athletes around the Quad Cities who are now going to have to try to scramble to find a game. And if memory serves, is this now Moline's 5th year in a row? Yeah. They're having to find an opponent for Alleman. So Moline's really been snake bitten by it. And it's just kind of the way the schedule is shaken out every year, that they were bitten by it last year on a week's notice, less than a week's notice. Yeah. And going back several years, even on years they competed, Moline game was missed out on. So yeah. I certainly get the frustration there, and it's no longer a one-off for a couple years. It's a trend now, and that's the disturbing part.
We both know, and the coaches in the Western Big Six, they're a bunch of great guys, really are. We'll get an announcement out here real soon about when we're going to have our View from the West kickoff party once again, and those are, they all come down. They're really good people. All the and I consider all of them friends. So you reached out to a few, I reached out to a few. I did talk to I'm going to put my cheaters on. You want to make fun of me as I do this?
Yeah.
Do I look like an old man? A
little bit.
Coach Welch said, at least we know in advance and not on a Tuesday. Not surprised. Everyone has to do what's best for them. Talked with Coach Furlong as well. So Coach Furlong said something really similar. He said, frustrated, not surprised, and glad they know now instead of finding out in October. So I think those are the main theme I got from the coaches that I talked to. I know you talked to a few others that share that same. Is frustration or frustrated the best word maybe right now?
Yeah, I think frustration maybe to an extreme for some cases, because again, it's a trend now, right? It's not a one-off, it's not a two-off deal. It's happened repeatedly, and these coaches feel burned, and I understand that frustration. And I heard from coaches that even in the timing that we have now, sure, it's not a week out. They're not really getting, blindsided in the middle of the season, but this is still not ideal.
No.
If you're talking a week 4, 5, 6 matchup in the middle of your season, everybody's got a conference game. There's very few opportunities to find the right fit to fit in your schedule. So a lot of teams are going to be left without a game. And that's that shouldn't happen, right? Like, we shouldn't be having this conversation year over year. So I think that's the really frustrating part. And I think, man, if you want to look big picture, I think that as this happens year over year, I think it damages the stability of the Western Big Six. I worry about the stability because when you look at, okay, so if Alleman, if the solution is Alleman has to leave all or nothing, that's essentially kind of where you'd be at, right? Because they won't let him leave for football only. So if you leave all or nothing, then the Western Big Six is down to 7 teams. And I would challenge you or anybody listening, who fits into the Western Big Six then if Alleman's out? Where do you turn?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know the next viable answer. I don't know that there's a great answer readily available. So that becomes a problem because with 7 teams, that's an odd number. So what do? You're going to find a conference game every week then. Maybe some coaches would argue that's easier than year over year trying to figure out if Alleman's playing or not. But either way, you have a problem because you're with an odd number. And let's think one step down the road. If you're at an odd number and some teams say, well, maybe there's better opportunities for us elsewhere, then people start looking. And then I don't know. I worry about the stability because it's not there right now. And, I don't know. I don't know how to fix it. I guess I keep trying to think of solutions for Alleman and for the Western Big Six to work together. And I don't know that I have a solution.
I think there's the elephant in the room is, and it's a divisive subject when it comes to this entire matter, is simply, can you let Alleman out of the Western Big Six for football only? And I know I've talked to several, and I know they're passionate about it. You're all in or all out. It's funny. I think my kids got some shirt that says all in for Alleman. And it's like, well, it's interesting I think that's, there's people that, and I understand it. I get it. I've heard the argument. So I'm not arguing for either side, but the other flip side is Alleman's never going to leave the conference with everything and say, okay, we'll get out completely, because there's no other conference around here for Alleman to go into. I don't know if we've mentioned it here, but it's well known that Alleman tried to get in the track and were politely told no. I don't know if politely was the word, but they were told no there. So if they go independent, you can't do an athletic department like that where you're the other, like, there's so many good programs at Alleman that are thriving and doing well that you have to think of those programs as well. It can't just be about football only. So that's the catch-22. And I think it comes down to, can you find a happy median? Because I don't know, Greg, I don't know if this is fixed. I'm not a betting man, you know that, but I don't know if next year in 2027 this is any different. So is that where we're to? Is it easy enough to say, can we find, is there a way to find a happy median where teams could maybe for 2 years, teams go and, hey, Alleman's out for 2 years. They sign that 2-year contract with whomever it is. So you know they have a team and a school ready to play. And then you revisit it after 2 years. Hey, how's it looking? Because I can tell you, Alleman's doing everything in their power from the feeder programs up to try to build this thing back up. So I guess your thoughts, is it all in, all out? Where are you at when it comes to letting Alleman out just for football? I know it's divisive and people are probably yelling at me right now, but that's it's a subject. It's a big thing.
I've heard that argument, and I don't know that I really get it, because I think the argument is like, if we let them out in football, then who says in 2 years they're not going to want to leave in sport XYZ because of whatever reason. And so like they worry that there's that kind of like trickle down effect. I don't know that I really see that.
Hey, real quick, Greg, I would say 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I understand that argument because Alleman's enrollment was super low. And there was I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but there was an administration that came in like 4 or 5 years ago that were garbage.
I've heard.
Complete, absolute garbage that almost ruined the entire school. But with that being said, I think the numbers are better overall. And I'm not just defending Alleman, although I guarantee you this on the chat right now, people telling me that. I think overall the other programs are pretty, I mean, I can't think of a bad one, but I understand that thought process. Go ahead. I apologize for interrupting.
No, so I think like that's been what I've heard. And so I would need to talk. I would love to talk to other athletic directors or people involved in the Western Big Six to hear other arguments as to why we can't explore that option. Maybe that option has been explored and they decided it's not the best option.
Absolutely.
That's fair. I'd
It's
like
not
to hear
ideal.
why.
It's not ideal.
Yeah. No, but I'd like to hear why, because I think we can all realize football is a different beast than every other sport. There's a reason football only plays once a week, right? Like, it's different than basketball. It's different than volleyball or baseball or go down the list. So I'm not sure why we can't make the exclusion for football, especially when you consider the other option right now is you get left trying to scramble to find an opponent.
Yeah.
If we let them out and then you know that you have a week open, then you know a year in advance that you have to find that. And yes, is that ideal? No, it's not ideal. But the whole situation's not ideal right now. So I don't know. I guess I would love to talk to people who have reasons for why we can't try it or think about it. I don't know. So
I mean, I would agree, but like, I do get the point that you want the Western Big Six to be at its best, and then it's everybody's all. I get it. I understand it. It's nowhere near ideal, and I almost understand it a couple of years ago. Like I do. Like I understand it now, but I would almost argue for saying no a few years ago, because the hope is, and what other schools had done was take 2 years, reset, reboot, and then you're ready to go. And you look at a Riverdale, you look at some other schools that had to do that and they've had success. It hasn't happened at Alleman. I think maybe that's because of the Western Big Six, some of it because it's a very difficult conference to be in and play in when you're a 300 student school. But I understand when Coach Welch is listening to this, Coach Schlemmer's probably yelling at me right now. Morrissey probably wants to. I totally understand their frustrations because they want to be focused on football, especially right now and in the season.
Yep.
And now they have to turn around and like figure it out other ways around. I did get a lot of comments saying try 8-man. Why don't they do 8-man? Well, I don't think they're allowed to do 8-man because you have to have a certain enrollment, and they're at 300 or something like that. That's not even close to being able to play 8-man football, is it?
It would be close. What's Alleman's enrollment? Do we know? If I'd have to look on IHSA's website.
You're asking me about a private school's enrollment in June. Hell if I know. I don't know. I don't think they know. I mean, you could look from last year, but I don't know, and that's the best way to do it. But I'm guessing 310, 320. That's a guess. Some Alleman person's listening to this yelling at me saying it's whatever, but I think that's the $1 million question at some of these schools and not just private ones.
I'm seeing their official enrollment listed on the IHSA website from 25-26 as 285. That's that's unmultiplied. That's just their straight enrollment level on IHSA from last year. So you could play 8-man football.
Okay.
Alleman could play 8-man football.
But they couldn't stay in the Western Big Six.
Well, that's another. that's a whole nother discussion.
I mean, that's the thing that eliminates it, is because if they play 8-man football, then they have to leave the conference that plays the other way. So the with 11-man football. So I think that's one thing I've seen a lot of as well. Is the fact that maybe 8-man football is an option. But yeah, it's not ideal for any school. And you mentioned Moline. I want to bring back the point that not just these 4 years. The last year under Coach Fritz, when they had a varsity team, they had to forfeit the Moline game. So you go back, it was the 2 years without, and then last year they canceled Moline, and now this year there's 4. But then also the 1 year that they finished out, I think it was Charles Jagasal's last year, they had to forfeit 1 game, and the 1 game they forfeited was against Moline. So it's a 5-year. Coach Morrissey was on the show during, I think it was after the season, and it was around Christmas, and he had the Grinch behind him, and it was an Alleman Grinch, and it was the Grinch that stole homecoming or something. I get it. I understand the frustration, but it's a tough thing to deal with. Now, I don't know. How do you reschedule? Now I'm asking you a question you probably don't know. So, but I know teams have been looking, but like you said, it's really hard to do when you can't find nobody has bye weeks, you know?
Yeah. Nope. So I don't know. I mean, you go to Steve Susi, right? And you ask him, who's he talked to? And what's his, he's got the master schedule. So I think that's where you start. Shout out Steve Susi, Friday Night Drive. Like, that's the place to start.
I did have one Western Big Six coach say to me on Wednesday evening, I'm probably going to call Seuss and talk to him. I mean, that's not a joke. He knows everything.
No, he knows all the schedules. But I think when you get into the middle of the season, in those weeks 4 through 7, even 8, week 8 and 9 are usually going to be conference games for a team. I don't know where you turn to. And even if there is an available team, where are they in proximity to you? What's their enrollment? Are they a good size, a good fit for you? You can kind of stretch that definition a little bit when you really need a game, but it's not always ideal. And so
you probably got to look at it too, Greg. And I'm not saying this would be the case, but and I've been told by Alleman people they'd love if they went 0-9 and had a team this year, they'd love it. It's not about like wins and losses. They get reality of what it would be. They'd love to be out there even if they lost every game. But you look at it, they get a forfeit. They get a win. If they don't play, you don't want to be, you don't want to be Geneseo and find that Loyola or whomever is looking for a game. And you're like, you don't want to take away let's be honest, an easy victory now that it's a forfeit and turn it into a loss. So there's that as well. A couple more things before I let you get out of here. It said two different things. One, I've had people say to me, well, what about the freshmen? They get the opportunity, toss them in, get them better, getting stronger, let them play. I know parents that won't let their kids play. There's no way they'd let their kid as a freshman play varsity football. I know a big dumb animal over in Bettendorf by the name of Pat Angerer that laughs and says he was 145 pounds as a freshman and would have gotten destroyed playing varsity football as a freshman. He ended up having an okay career at Alleman or at Iowa, and then I wish at Alleman, at Iowa, and then in the league. So the idea of like what about the freshman really isn't a solution to this whole matter, is it?
No, I think there's safety concerns that need to be put in there, and if you overlook that, I think you're being blind to the situation. I don't think you can look that far down the road. It's one thing to want them to be on the field and to want to make sure we have a game, and it's another thing to put students at risk. And I don't think there are some freshmen maybe that could handle it, right? Mm-hmm. But when you tell that story, you're right. Pat Angerer went on to be in the NFL and admittedly says when he was a freshman, he would not have felt safe on the field or doesn't know that he would be anywhere near productive. So that's kind of a case in point, right? It's an isolated case, but it's also a guy who went on to have a lot of football success, feeling like maybe as a freshman, I probably wouldn't have been out there and done very good. So, no, I don't. Yeah, it's easy to point and say, well, they have enough freshmen, bring them up, like their bodies. Come on, like let's be real here, and that's not something.
You have a freshman, right? Sophomore.
Yeah, gonna be sophomore, but yeah.
I mean, that's just the. And last one. And this isn't, again, bailing Alleman out, but it's hard to go through this when football was the way it used to be. Numbers are down in football in general. I think that's and I want to point out you just said 285 kids at Alleman last year.
That's what their enrollment level is listed on their website, on the IHSA website from last year.
So I'm guessing around 300 this year. I don't know. I think they graduated a small class. I think the class that's coming in is supposed to be a little bigger. So I think it's going to be around 300. There's 300 kids and you have 20. Like you should be able to find 3, and out of 300 kids, you should probably be able to find that. Numbers are down in football in general, Greg. And that's specialization of sports. That's health, concussions. We can bring up a lot of different issues, but I think there's something to be said that the numbers are down all over the place, and that's concerning in general as well.
Okay, this should have been research I did before we started.
I saw you working.
Alleman's classification moving forward, 26-27 will now be 312. So it is an uptick. So to your point, they're at 300.
I said 310.
Plus 300. But I think that getting back to the initial question, anybody under 325 can play 8-man football. So they could play 8-man football still at 312. But again,
can Alleman play 8-man against Molina and let them play 11? Like, no, doesn't work.
See how that works. Yeah. So I guess, we've talked a lot about Alleman and the Western Big Six, obviously. I think the question that I would leave to anyone listening is, why wouldn't Alleman fit in the Three Rivers? Like, I wish those discussions would happen, because I think if it came up, I think Alleman would be smart to move over in every sport.
They do it in a minute. A minute. Now, I don't know if they have all of the sports in the track that I don't know. I think they would, because in the bigger division, they have girls soccer and the things they need. So they would do it in a heartbeat. I think, and this is going to make a lot of Three Rivers people mad, so I got to tread lightly here. If Alleman ever figured it out football wise again and got back on track, like it would, Alleman could have a pretty good run in the track when it comes. I would go back to, and I've argued about this with Brian Stocking, I think. I know, weird arguing with Stockpile. We should have put
those arguments.
We should have put Stockpile in on the discussion. And joining us now is I'll say, like, the Charles Juggasaws last year, I think Alleman went 1-8. I think if they played in the Three Rivers that year, they won 5 games. Yeah,
it'd be close.
It's just, and that's nothing against the track. It's just going and playing teams in 7A and 6A are much different than playing 2A and 1A and 3A schools. I there's great football in the track, and I'm not saying Alleman would come in and have a cakewalk there, but I maybe a worry in some of the other sports. I don't know if, obviously basketball wouldn't be an issue. There's really good basketball on the track as well, but I don't know if some of the other sports with girls soccer, boys soccer, I don't know if that would be. But no, Alleman would love the invitation. If that was an invitation, I can probably accept that on their behalf for them if you're doing it.
Yeah. I just think that as we've had this whole discussion, I think we're there, right? We talked about 2022 is when the track said no the first time. I think that conversation, I'm sure people are trying to have that conversation. I think it needs to be had, because I think that it's just there's too much happening and too many student athletes losing out on opportunities, in the football aspect, especially in the Western Big Six. But I just think that it's worth that extended discussion, really trying to figure out why or why not. And I get it. Alleman is from a metro area. They're a non-boundaried school. So that is different than when you're talking about smaller rural communities who are boundaried schools. I get it. There's a lot of discussions to be had there. But when you start looking at size-wise and kind of how they compete, I think it's worth the discussion. And I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I think that when push comes to shove, it maybe needs to be a serious talk. So.
Yeah. No, I had somebody talk about recruiting on one of my social media, Alleman isn't doing a good enough job recruiting. Well, no, obviously they're not, because if they did, they'd have a football season. So I think, but hey, as a kid that went to Catholic school into Alleman, I look around the state and I see non-boundary schools that are private schools playing on the last day of the season every year in Champaign or DeKalb or wherever it ends up being. I understand it. I can get that part of it as well. So a tough situation. I think the last thing I'll leave it with, Greg, is, and I get the frustrations of everybody, but I don't think I don't think Alleman's trying to screw people over. I don't think I think that the other schools are frustrated for good reason. Just remember, it's high school athletics, and there's not really any winners right now. Nobody, I don't think Alleman's sitting there going, "Ha, we won." And I know that the other schools aren't saying that either, because I have a niece that's going to be a senior next year, and my sister said to me last night, she's like, it's going to be weird that Emily's not really going to know high school football. And I'm like, wow, you're right. And she's like, because her freshman and sophomore year, none. And then they had 6 games, and then next year, none. So Friday night football and high school for an entire high school class that's going to go all the way through consisted of 6 Friday night football games. So they're not winning in Alleman when it comes to that, and they're frustrated with it, and they want to fix it, and they're doing everything they can to do it. And I get the other side of it too. I hope everybody can get things scheduled, and leave us your comments, your thoughts. Yell at me.
Oh, they will.
Yell at Greg. I mean, do that more. I'm trying, and I know I'm going to get a lot of Dazzo's a homer and Alleman homer. Like, I get the frustrations, and I even said to you, Greg, when it came down on Wednesday, I called him like, it's getting tough to spin, Greg. Like, it's hard to, like, there's frustrations when you have a school of 312 kids.
Yeah.
You should probably be able to find enough kids to play high school football and have a varsity team. So that's the frustration if you're an Alleman supporter that's not happening, and hopefully they can get that fixed soon. By the way, really damn good podcast this week came out for View from the West. Can you tell us about it? Because might be one of my favorite listens that you guys have done.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So we had the elders. So John Elder, the Hall of Fame legendary head coach from Alexis High School, now is formed into United, with consolidation. And we had his dad, or his son, Pat Elder, who is a longtime Illinois high school football coach. Coaches now at Bureau Valley, recently was also at Ridgewood and led them to success in 8-man football. And it was cool to get father and son and then sit them down and kind of pick their brain. And man, John Elder, man, sharp as a tack, still knows. He remembers minute details from playoff games in 1974.
It's crazy, Greg.
It's amazing.
Greg, listening to it, I can't remember if I put on underwear this morning. And this guy remembers, like, way back. I mean, it's a really good listen. I tell everyone that listens to this show and watches the show, if you are you subscribing to this show on YouTube, you should be subscribing to View from the West. Same thing when it comes to the podcasting platforms on Spotify, iHeart, Apple, Podbean. Make sure you're doing that as well. And we're not going to give away everything, but we're planning on a party again, huh? You're saying there's a party?
Just confirmed recently, August 9th, the second annual now live kickoff party from the Other Bar downtown Moline. So tell your friends, tell all your high school, football buddies to come on down to the Other Bar in Moline Sunday, August 9th.
We had a great turnout last year. Like, it was awesome. Like, it was tons of people.
More, right?
Absolutely. Fill the place up. You can hear the show. We have big speakers so you can hear it. If you're tired of listening to Greg and myself and whatever we're talking about. And do you think Mitch will fly in on the private jet?
And negotiations are in the works. I'll say that.
Ooh,
trying and see what we can do.
Hey, if you need to tip the scale, August 9th might be somebody's birthday.
Yeah. Okay. And you know the irony of you saying that, because I wasn't going to bring it up. Today is my birthday.
No, it isn't. Is it really? Oh my gosh. Well, happy birthday, buddy.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
All right. And you got to spend it talking Western Big Six football, which, if anyone knows Greg, that's how he would want to spend his birthday.
Pretty good.
That's as good as it gets. So, all right, buddy. I appreciate it. We'll probably talk about this in the very, very near future as well. So thanks, man.
I'm guessing so.
Appreciate you. That is Greg Armstrong from View from the West. A great debate. And again, continue to weigh in. We'll look at all the comments, social media wise, on the YouTube chat as well. Hopefully, eventually things get figured out, but it's a tough situation for everyone involved. And I get the frustration for the other Western Big Six schools. They're probably tired of hearing that. I get it. I'm tired of saying it. We got more to get to. OTA, we'll be back right after this. For over 65 years, Linquist Ford has proudly served the Quad Cities, and they're just getting started. Looking for a new ride? Check out a healthy mix of new and quality pre-owned vehicles ready for you. Need service? Skip the waiting room. With free pickup and delivery and mobile service, they come to you. No delays, no hassle. From routine maintenance to a full-service collision repair shop, it's fast, friendly, reliable, and always transparent. Linquist Ford, Serving the Quad Cities since 1959. Experience the difference today.
Hello, Crawford Company.
You're not gonna believe this. My air conditioning, plumbing, and electricity are all on the fritz at the same time.
Well, lucky for you, we do all three.
Hey, it's the Crawford guy. One call to Crawford can fix all your household problems. For heating and air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical, count on the experts at Crawford Company.
Like me, the Crawford lady.
And me, the Crawford guy.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
This summer, light the fuse on something bigger than fireworks. It's red, white, and you at the John Deere Classic. July 1st through 5th with world-class golf and 4th of July energy you can feel. Wednesday is Youth Day and kids 15 and under get in free with a paid adult. After golf, concerts on the course rocks the weekend. Carrie Underwood, headlines, and All-American 4th of July celebration. And Old Dominion closes out Sunday. Stars, stripes, summer tradition. Get tickets now before they're gone at johndeereclassic.com.
Welcome back to Update with Matt Randazzo here on a rainy, stormy Thursday in the Quad Cities. Thank you guys so much for watching wherever you're watching at. We are just thrilled we're still on the air. It's funny, in my TV days, I don't worry about a storm coming in. I do know the engineers. I remember the engineers worrying about certain things as storms came through and stuff. And I am shocked that we're still on the air. There was at one point during the last segment where we had a lightning strike here. I'm in my luxurious loft, if you will. Basically, it's the room above the garage. People relax. So, and I think it was crazy. I thought for sure everything was coming off and I was going to see nothing and the show was going to be ruined. But here we are. You can't stop a good thing. So, it's been a great show. If you're just joining us, Scott Dochterman, one of the best in the business, joining us to talk about the Sorsby Saga, if you will. Some Iowa football, Illinois football, Roger Craig Stadium. We talked Daryl Bates, and that was cool as well. So great chat with Scott Dochterman. If you missed it, go back, check it out, scroll back, listen. Watch all that stuff. Also, last segment, we talked with Greg Armstrong, and we had just an open conversation about the Alleman football program and what's going on. Of course, the news coming yesterday that Alleman will be JV only once again. So it'll be the third time in 4 years that Alleman won't have a varsity football team. Last year, they didn't finish the season, played 6 games, wasn't able to play the last 3. So it's a frustrating situation at Alleman High School. I can tell you that right now. We talked about some facts. They have asked to get out of the Western Big Six for football only. The Western Big Six has said no, and that's their right and prerogative. That's just a fact that's happened. And there's 20 kids, I think, is what I've been told from sophomore to senior that's committed to play football next year, which isn't enough. I've had some people on the chat say, again, like, play the younger kids, let the younger kids play. You don't want 14-year-olds playing in the Western Big Six. You just don't. 15-year-olds, whatever, however old they are, you don't want them playing in the Western Big Six, and their parents don't want them doing that either. And that's one reason why they might not play football the rest of the way. Not just physical injuries, but just getting your butt kicked like that over and over again isn't good. So that's not an option for the people that are clamoring for that on Facebook or our chat or whatever. It's not an option. On the flip side of it, if you're a Western Big Six school watching this, I completely get it. The frustrations of the coaches that I know well and that I'm friends with. It's one thing to spin things as the Alleman guy when it's 2 years of doing it. It's now 4 years with a season, half season in between. So there's frustration, and I understand that. So I don't know what the answer is. I've had people reach out texting wise and say, hey, the bring back the Olympic, Alleman with those schools from the Olympic. And there's not an easy answer. So hopefully the schools that lost games, and there's 2 schools ahead of the Western Big Six. I believe it's Fulton and Morrison that are looking for games now too, because that's who they were going to open the season with. One question I've gotten a lot, what happens if they don't find a replacement? They get a forfeit victory. I've had some people say, well, good, they get a victory. That's an easy win. That gets them closer to the playoffs, because I think you win 2 or 3 games and you're in the playoffs this year. That's not the point. People want to play football. Kids want to play football. They only get 9 of them. guaranteed each year, and they want to be able to have Friday night lights, get out there and play. Some of those games that are now canceled are homecoming games, and I think probably, and I don't know for sure, that schools in the Western Big Six have learned right now not to schedule homecoming with Alleman, knowing that this could be a possibility. So hopefully that didn't get affected too much, but senior nights, homecomings, you want to play football at least 9 times. That's what it's about. So hopefully a school with over 300 kids can get more kids out to play high school football. I mentioned to somebody, you're trying to rebuild a football program in a time in which football participation is declining. It's a tough thing to do. So everybody in place at Alleman is in the right place. It's great administration. They're doing a fantastic job. And the coaching as well. Coach Barber is an awesome dude with a great football mind and a great energy to him as well. So the people are in place. Let's hopefully think they can get this figured out sooner rather than later. Okay, I didn't mean to go into another rant on the Western Big Six and Alleman and the situation that is. So I do want to mention a couple things before we take another quick break and get out of here for a Thursday. I saw this yesterday. I thought it was pretty cool, and we knew about it during the draft, but Pittsburgh has basically become Iowa City East when you look at Caden Weegan and our guy Logan Lee, and Y.A. Black is in there, and Dunk and a couple others as well. Castro's in there, and there's just a lot of dudes from Iowa. 7 guys. Caleb Johnson, I almost say Caleb Williams. 7 guys that are there. From the University of Iowa. And of course, the obvious thing is the color scheme is the same. But I thought it was a really cool picture posted by, I believe, Pittsburgh yesterday on social media. So Iowa, well represented. Hey, I'm a Lions fan, but I love the Steelers right now as well. And no, not because of Jerry Burkhead, who might be watching the show for obvious reasons today, because they beat us last year. But Logan is one of my favorite people. And then obviously the ties to the University of Iowa. So that was a cool thing to see. Also, the Western Big Six women's basketball, the Big 12 women's basketball schedules have been released. There is a home and home with Iowa State and Oklahoma State. Why, you ask? Is that important? Obviously, one of the best players in Iowa State history is now playing in Oklahoma. So important. Interesting games coming up in Stillwater and in Ames when it comes to women's basketball this season as well. We are going to take one last quick timeout. I am shocked, guys. I'm floored that this show is still on with the way the weather is outside. But sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and I think we're getting lucky today. So one more quick timeout. We'll wrap up the show, talk about what's coming this week and next week as well. Right ahead on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. and the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Update with Matt Randazzo here on a rainy Thursday, Thursday, June 11th. We are less than 10 days away, 9 days away from the 12th annual Guy Randazzo Memorial Golf Outing at Highland Springs Golf Course. We got sold out. We've had a couple openings happen, which is something that happens every year. So if you're interested in golfing in the Guy Randazzo Memorial Golf Outing and get a team, we'd love to have you. As we've mentioned and talked about on this show, June 20th, Highland Springs Golf Course. Great day of golf. You'll enjoy everything about the course. You'll enjoy the events we have out on the course as well. We're one of those charity events that we're not just asking for money all the time. We give you stuff out on the course as well, which is fun. Cooper Koch, Tate Sage, a team from Iowa basketball will be there. Charles Jugasol will be there. Journey Houston's going to be working our basketball hole with a teammate or two possibly. So if you're interested in people from WQAD, high school coaches, a lot of the high school coaches I've talked about on the show probably might be out there as well. When it comes to football side of things, basketball side of things, I talked to Alex Kelly out at over at Ambrose yesterday, Riverdale basketball coach. He's going to be in the outing for the first time this year. Our old normals like Thomas Smith from Alleman baseball. Jay Kidwell's golfing with him. So anyways, a lot of fun people out there. Come out, enjoy it, and join us for the day. We have 1 or 2 spots open right now. Go to GuyRandazzoGolf.com right now. Fill your team up and join us on June 20th. We'd love to have you for a great day of golf, raising money for a good cause, and also honoring my old man, my hero, Guy Randazzo. So it should be a lot of fun. We've enjoyed the show. We've gone through who we had. Go back and listen to it. Watch it, enjoy it. Tomorrow on the show, Alex Tanney, former Monmouth quarterback. Right now, the offensive passing game coordinator for the Colts. He's got a camp coming up in Monmouth real soon. We'll have him on talking about football, his camp, and a whole bunch more. So Alex Tanney tomorrow on the show. We're going to keep talking about the Western Big Six thing as well. I don't know how. But we'll figure out a way to continue our conversation with that and a whole bunch more. Coming up next week, Chase and Randall will be on the show next week. A lot of people have seen on social media, Chasen's back in the Quad Cities right now, enjoying some time at home, and rightfully so. I didn't want to bug him that much when he's at home and enjoying that. So we're looking early next week to get Chasen on the show and kind of get caught up with his journey. We talk about covering athletes in the Quad Cities, and we did that with Jay Kidwell to start the week. He's done it for 25 years and at a high level, and we went down memory lane. Chase and Randall is one of those guys that when people say to me, your favorite athletes to cover, he's at the top, if not at the top of the list when it comes to human beings and people I've gotten to know and become friends with and really appreciate as well. So Chase and Randall next week. I'm hoping Frank Garza next week, Luca Garza's dad, kind of talking about his camp. Luca will be in the future as well. We'll have Luca on in the very near future as well. Not a long week next week. Plan next week is no show on Friday, maybe no show on Thursday. The golf outing is going to be taking a bunch of my time, so definitely shows Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, and we'll kind of go from there and see how everything handles. Best of luck to the girls' soccer teams as well, playing tomorrow. Bettendorf and North Scott. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. The show will happen before they officially hit the pitch. So everyone stay safe out there. Round 1 of the storms, I think, is kind of getting done, but I know that the fun probably has just begun. I know there's another batch coming this afternoon as well. So stay inside, rewatch the shows, go back and watch other shows from this week as well. And we'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Have a great Thursday.